Good morning, everyone. My name is Weston Zimmerman. I'm one of the founders of Synced Up, and today I want to talk to you about production rates. What exactly is a production rate? Why should you care? How am I going to use it? What are the benefits? What are the pitfalls? And so, on my screen here, I have a spreadsheet that I built to kind of help people find their own production rates. So, I'll get into it by describing what a production rate is. So a production rate is a formula that helps you say, hey, 1 ton of stone for a patio, like stone base for a patio, will cover 40 square feet or whatever the result is. It's the formula that comes up with that. And then it gives you the ability to plug in and say, well, I have a 800 square foot patio. How much stone do I need? And the outcome is, 30-some ton of stone. That is the function of a production rate. You can also use it for labor, things like, hey, how long does it take me to install a patio? I'm going to use the patio as kind of a hypothetical scenario here. And again, I'll be able to say, well, hey, it's an 800 square foot patio, and the production rate will spit out and say, well, that takes 220 man hours to install based on your production rate. So that's the functional or the practical use of a production rate. As soon as we define that, then obviously your next question is like, well, how do I find one? How do I calculate my own? And it's pretty simple. So you probably are doing this on every single estimate you produce right now if you're not using production rates, meaning like every time you do a quote for a patio, you're doing the math manually to figure out how much stone you need. You're thinking through the project to figure out how much labor you need. You're thinking through the project and doing the math manually to figure out how much joint sand compound you need. If you just take the math that you're doing manually each time on a quote, put it into a formula in a spreadsheet or a software like Synced Up, then that is your production rate. And then what the production rate gives you the ability to do is not do that math over and over again and just plug in, hey, I have 800 square feet, bam, there's my result. I need this much labor, this much stone, this much joint sand, all of that stuff. So you might be thinking, well, hey, that's a lot of work. Can I just use your production rate? Do you have a library of templates or whatever? Well, ish, but I'm going to tell you no. Instead of going out there and saying, well, hey, can I buy your production rates from you? Can you just give me yours? Instead of that, that's exactly why I built this spreadsheet, is to help you find your own production rates. I'm going to get into a little bit of explaining as to why that is, because using someone else's production rate is a little bit like trying to wear someone else's shoes. Probably not going to be comfortable, probably not going to fit most of the time. Now, with materials, there's a bit of a caveat there, because in theory, if you're all using base rock for your patios, it's the same. If you're using the same product, installing patios the same way, my production rate for how much stone it's going to take for the base is probably going to work for you as well, assuming you're using the same stone and all of that. So in theory, there's some materials production rates that can be shared and used as long as your variables are the same, like using the same product, installing the same thickness, all of that stuff. But with labor, that's where you cannot use other people's production rates, because let's say that I got a relatively green crew, first year or two, they're not super skilled yet, they're kind of learning, we use a lot of hand tools, wheelbarrows, like it's going to take me a lot longer than, say, you have a crew with top-of-the-line equipment, mini excavator and dingo, or a skid loader on every job, you're super efficient, you have 5, 10 plus years of experience in the field, your crew members. Like, your production rate for labor on the exact same job is going to be very different than my production rate for labor. So you see what I mean? Like, and even like your own production rates change over time. Like each once or twice a year, I would recommend that you look at your own track record, which is again is what this spreadsheet on my screen is for, and just make sure that your production rate is actually in line with what you are actually capable of producing now. For instance, if you have some turnover and you got some green employees, that's going to have an impact on your production rate. If you got super skilled employees and you buy a mini excavator and now you're super much faster, that's going to have an effect on your production rate. So these things evolve and change over time, again, which is why I built this spreadsheet. So the way this spreadsheet works is I built this as an example of, again, installing paver patios, a hardscape patio environment. You could kind of repurpose this spreadsheet for how much mulch, coming up with a production rate for mulch, or labor for installing plants, or you name it. You can use it for anything. But what I did is I kind of broke it up in 3 different categories: easy access, medium difficulty access, and high difficulty access. And then for each one, I am tracking the square footage of the installed hardscape flatwork, whether it's a walkway, patio, whatever, and then the actual man hours it took to complete that portion of the job. So what that means is every time I do a job, I come in here and I plug in 170 square feet. Took me 36.65 man hours. I got that tracked either in my app or on a spreadsheet or even on pen and paper, whatever it is. But I'm plugging that in here, okay? And then next job I do the same thing. Plug that information in. Next job I do the same thing. And I do that, I repeat that. Obviously, the more you do it, the more accurate your production rate becomes. But I would say at least have half a dozen entries in here to kind of get a good solid average. But then what the spreadsheet will do is basically just take the square footage divided by the man hours it took to complete and give you a square foot per man hour production rate. Then it averages all that out to come up with, hey, there's your average. You can, on average, produce 3.4 square feet from the time you break down to the time you clean up and pull off the job site of finished hardscape flat work per man hour. And then bam, there I got my production rate. Now I can go and build an estimate and saying, hey, well, my patio that I want to build is 1,200 square feet. How many man hours would that take? Bam, it gives me the result. Well, what about a 400 square foot patio? Bam, gives me the result. And it's all based on my average production rate right here. So you can see how it's super useful. Like a lot of the benefits for production rates are things like you can save a ton of time building estimates and turn that proposal over back to the customer much quicker. In some cases, before you even leave the driveway, because you got this bam, you kind of get the benefits of like, you know, the big no-no of bidding by square foot. You kind of get the benefits of bidding by square foot without actually bidding by square foot. Meaning, like, the problem with square foot bidding, I'm just going to get on a bit of a tangent there, is if I say, it's $25 a square foot. That's my price. Okay. Well, what about difficult access? How are you going to compensate for that? It's not going to take more stone. It's not going to take more pavers. It's not going to take more joint sand, but it is going to take more labor. See what I'm saying? So that's the challenges with square foot bidding. It doesn't compensate for any of that stuff. Production rates allow you to, it breaks it down per component, labor, materials, and all that, and allows you to compensate for that. So I plug in I'm kind of bidding by square foot for my labor based on easy access, medium access, difficult access. But then I bid based on square foot for my pavers, and my stone, and my joint sand, and my bedding sand, my edge restraint, all of that stuff. And so you kind of get the benefit of the set it and forget it type bidding without actually, while still paying attention to the variables of how difficult the access is and you name it. So anyway, back to the benefits. It is save time. It is providing a system and process approach of thinking, which is scalable. It's a lot faster to use, and it's a lot easier to train and onboard new employees. So like, let's say that you're growing your business. You need to bring in another salesperson to kind of help you get these quotes turned over back to customers. And you suddenly realize that, man, I got 20 years of experience in between these 2 years, and how do I unload that and give it to my new hire? I'm asking them to do an impossible task. I'm asking them to estimate jobs accurately the same way I've always done it, but the only information I have is right here. Production rates solve that issue. You pull out what's in your head, put it into production rates, and even a new person, as long as they can run a tape measure, can build an accurate quote for you. So it's super helpful to make it scalable, to shorten the learning curve, to training people. Even a foreman can, do a change order or do a quote for you while they're out there in the field when you have production rates. Another thing is it's a lot fewer human error mistakes because you're not typing in a calculator 30 different calculations to come up with how much stone I need, right? You're just like, bam, the math is all done, plug in the square footage and it gives you the result. It also gives you a mechanism to track your crew's performance. So when you have this spreadsheet, like what's on my screen here right now, you can come in here and be like, hey, the last time I did the analysis, we came in, we should be producing 3.4 square feet, but man, this year we're down to like 2.9. Why is that? And you might be like, well, had 2 new guys, lost an experienced guy, whatever. You come up with it gives you a mechanism to track your crew's performance or judging. Let's say, hey, my company average is this bar, this benchmark, and this crew over here consistently beats it. This crew over here consistently misses it. Why is that? So it can be helpful for even performance evaluations. And I already kind of went into how it's contextually more accurate than blanket square foot pricing because it breaks it out into the individual components of labor, materials, etc. And for a lot of guys, especially in the beginning of business, like it is a lot better peace of mind, less stressing over jobs and being like, man, am I bidding the right amount of man hours here? Man, I've never done a job this big. I'm stressed, I'm afraid I got the calculations wrong here somewhere. But hey, as long as you got your track record, your history, numbers don't lie. That's what I love about formulas. So yeah, to wrap it all up, I mean, is there any potential pitfalls with production rates? I would say very few, if any. I mean, there's conventional wisdom is always needed. Maybe one potential pitfall is blind trust into, like, you're just trusting that production rate that you built 3 years ago without ever checking it since you built it. You know, that would be a potential pitfall. You blind trust. I always be like, trust but verify. Like, come in here every once or twice a year and just kind of like check. Just cross-reference your production rate you're using to build estimates with to see what your actual performance is. Because if your crew is if you're hiring green employees to replace, employee turnover, and you don't update your production rate, that could get you into trouble. So yeah, it is well worth the time it takes to sit down someday, spend a couple hours building these production rates, building a spreadsheet or using a software like Synced Up to then use those production rates to speed up your estimating flow. I'll just show you real quick what that looks like in Synced Up itself. So you can come in here let me just create a new work area to kind of give you an example. Let me just do a patio. And I have a template here that I have built with production rates. Let me just turn templates on here. Here we go. Drag and drop in my patio and walkway template. And let's say, well, hey, how much stone do I need? Well, I can just click on this, plug in my square footage. Bam, there it is. I don't even have to think. No brain cells required. And I even have like different production rates in here for easy access, labor production, or difficult access. So let's say, hey, this is going to be a relatively difficult one. I'll just plug in my 600 square feet here, and tells me exactly how many man hours I need. Or if I was using the easy access, it would use this many. So you can see that then if it's like, hey, well, that's my benchmark, but it's actually not as difficult as some of the jobs I use to build this difficult access production rate. So I'm going to knock that back to maybe 250. You can still override. The production rate just provides you a benchmark with which to use, and you can still tweak and override. Like, again, conventional wisdom is still needed, but it really helps you reduce human error and get a lot faster without punching so many things into a calculator. So yeah, that is how I use production rates. That's how I like to experience the benefits of production rates. You can use the link in this article. I'll put it in the description below. If you're watching this in the blog post, there's a link here where you can access my sheet for production rates right here, and you can use it for yourself. You'll have to download it and then open it up in Excel and use it. You won't be able to edit it in the browser itself like what I have here. But if you have any questions, leave a comment below, or reach out to us directly on Synced Up's website. If you'd like to have a demo to see how you can implement this right here into your own business, just hit us up on our website, book a demo, and we'll be glad to show you how you can benefit from it. But until next time, thanks for watching. Let me know if this was valuable for you, or if you have any comments or things that I missed going over the production rates thing. I'd love to hear how production rates has been either helpful or been a big game changer for your business. Thanks. See you next time.